Hey, what is up everybody? Gannon here. Welcome back to another one of my Star Trek reviews. In last week's episode of Star Trek Picard, titled Dominion, Vadic became the new captain of the USS Titan the moment that she managed to get over onto the Titan with her cronies and take over the entire ship along with the bridge, making most of the bridge crew hostages, and she's using that leverage and the comm system to entice Jack to come aboard the bridge, assumingly so that she could wisp him away on the Shrike and murder everybody else and finalize the Changeling's very eerie and still mysterious Frontier Day plans. Jack, Beverly, Picard, Geordi, and the data/lore module are down below, and they are trying to find a way in today's episode to retake the bridge. I was rather unsatisfied with last week's episode. I felt very betrayed that it was titled Dominion. The fact that we have these changelings in the show for a while now, and the only thing that they've really done the last 4 episodes is be a mechanism of violence and shock value, but we really have learned very little about them besides the fact that the ones aboard the Shrike and Captain Vadic are victims of this very poorly explained Starfleet experiment called Project Proteus. No new lore about the Dominion War yet, nothing that makes these changelings very special. We don't even know if they partook in the Dominion War explicitly as changelings. We don't know much about them. Summarized lore about Deep Space Nine was just regurgitated, leaving me a little bit annoyed. Clearly, the worst episode of the season leads the viewer to question the competence of the people making Star Trek. In all honesty, even on a low budget, you should be able to make a 10 episode season when most of the Star Trek fan base are used to 15, 16 episode seasons minimum. You don't really get a get out of jail free card where one of your 10 episodes is just allowed to be completely lacking and boring. We did kind of get that Tuvok appearance though, which was really exciting. It would be very cool for them to make up for this if we saw like Admiral Janeway and the real Tuvok at the end of the series making an appearance after they've saved Starfleet from the changelings. But with all that being said, let's just get right in today's episode, because today's episode thankfully was a lot more entertaining. Star Trek Picard, Episode 8, titled Surrender. Let's get right into it. Today's episode starts off with an incredible amount of violence, with Vadic seizing the opportunity while she has control of the Titan to slaughter all of the crewmates running around the hallways trying to figure out what's going on. They're actually getting murked by the changelings, and it's kind of strange, to be honest. This new evolution of changeling leads them to just kind of remain in human form and use guns, which is a little bit sad because, hey, budget requires us to not be able to, like, animate changelings all the time. They're kind of just getting shot up like normal grunts. It doesn't really feel like they're changelings a whole lot of the time. It really just seems like they're aliens in these really goofy, poorly designed outfits. I'm gonna be honest, I still really don't like the outfits of Vadic's goons. Also, there's an interesting scene in this episode where Raffi actually has combat with multiple changelings, and the only thing that she uses are blades, which they appear to vibrate. Hopefully they have some like changeling hunting properties to them, but taking on one changeling as a regular solid individual is tough. Raffi was like 1v3ing these guys with vibranium swords like it was Kratos from God of War. It was insane. Really cool scene coming from Captain Shaw talking to Seven, talking about the consequences of her actions, saying that she had the opportunity to blow the turbo lift. Was she really going to blow the turbo lift in an attempt to protect the bridge and kill Captain Shaw? She decided not to, and, you know, they took over the ship, and now plenty of the crewmen are dying. I would go to say at least, like, probably between 20 and 50 people in these hallways died via the changelings. So even though Seven did protect Captain Shaw, I would argue that she did not do the right thing. And if it was really an obvious choice to her that she could have blown it up, I mean, really, she should have done it. But from a viewer's perspective, screw that. Protect Captain Shaw at all costs. I love that dude. Finally, get to see Deanna and Riker after they were weirdly absent from the entire last episode for no reason. I mean, come on. Even with budgeting purposes, you could have filmed a couple extra seconds of them in this prison and just included it into last episode. It was very strange not seeing Worf, Raffi, Riker, or Deanna at all in last week's very boring episode. I keep on picking on it, but it really was just mid as hell. This is actually post-torture, by the way. There was this torture that was mentioned, and it was meant to very much scare and make them worry about the safety of Deanna and Riker, and the fact that they didn't film any type of torture or any type of sound effects at all of them going through it is a little bit disappointing. Deanna and Riker have just been ghosts and totally absent in this period of time, and it seems like nothing happened to them. There's no sense of strain on them. The torture has been skipped. Riker folded and basically gave them the codes necessary, but I think that they were like compromised codes he mentioned, so they weren't authentic. Now they're just taking the time to talk about their feelings, and Riker is opening up about how he has been reinvigorated, has a new passion for life, and how he was very closed off and very dispassionate after the passing of Thaddeus. Information we actually learn that Deanna Troi is not completely omit of blame here. She's actually responsible for using her Betazoid telepathic powers to help Riker get through that grief by essentially stealing it and taking it off of his shoulder. Riker not being able to fully bear the brunt of the grief and go through a healthy healing process was damaged in a way, and that's led Riker to become the kind of reserved, shitty person that we saw at the beginning of the season. And they take another opportunity in this episode to just take digs at the previous seasons of Star Trek Picard. It seems like the showrunners who make the show now are very dissatisfied with the previous seasons as much as we are, because Riker says that he hated Nepenthe as much as Deanna Troi reveals that she doesn't really like the place that they live now. They don't like the wildlife they live there. They don't like how it's secluded, how they don't talk to anybody, and they want to go back to the city and drink Raktaginos and actually enjoy life again. But I'm also disappointed about how they don't show love to the previous seasons at all. No mention of Elnor, not even one word of that dude in this new season, like he doesn't exist. It is a little bit of a shame. Even though you might have made mistakes in the last 2 seasons, I think it's a little bit disappointing that they just act like they don't exist, because there is stuff that I like about them. And it seems like in season 3, they take every opportunity to just pick and criticize the weird stuff that happened in the last 2. This is around the 5-minute point in the video, and if you're still watching, I would like to kindly ask you, if you're enjoying any of the content on the channel, to please subscribe. I kind of want to be a YouTuber eventually, so I have to beg you guys to some degree to click that big red button. And not a lot of people actually stick around in the final 20 seconds when I do usually ask. So there's your little reminder. Worf and Raffi, they've been missing, like I've been kind of complaining about, come in at such an epic moment to save Riker and Deanna from the Shrike. There is this hilarious scene when, you know, Worf releases them from their cage, and he has this very poetic, almost romantic speech to Deanna about how he's thought about her many times, about how he's used the image of her to better himself. Riker is over here just like, bro, come on, man. We all know about that one-off romance, Deanna and Worf, that was in the TNG that did not really last that long and went nowhere. It was very passionate fling between the two. Star Trek has always been really cool with the relationships, in my opinion, and where they go, especially with Worf and how he has the relationship with Jadzia and also Ezri. When you're first watching TNG for like the first time, it's very strange that Deanna and Worf get together at the end, almost as strange as it is to see 7 of 9 and Chakotay just have this kind of slightly forced, strange 3-episode relationship at the end of Voyager. I feel like the more you go back and rewatch Star Trek, the more you start to love how bold and crazy some of these pairings that they tried implementing into the show were. This episode, we actually finally get to see all of the crew members in one place. It is a beautiful moment. But first, before we can get all the crew members into one place, we need to retake the bridge, and we also need somebody to help us do that, and we need a supercomputer, Sydney says, that can do all of these computations per second. Obviously, the person that comes to mind is Data. Data has to win this war of consciousness, this war of sentience with Lore. Lore is very much stronger than Data. He's malicious. He doesn't have ethical subroutines. He could legitimately murder people, making him more strong than Data in an actual fight of consciousness. Data, he has this plan essentially where he's giving him part of himself, just his memories, and handing them over to Lore. And Data claims this is because Lore has had nothing while Data has had everything. Lore is taking the opportunity to mock Data about his value on memories, value on his existence of trying to become more human. It all comes from a place of insecurity, and like Geordi said in the last episode, a perverted sense of what it means to be human. Data is smart. He knows he can't win this fight physically. When he gives these memories over to Lore and Lore eats them all up and takes them as trophies, essentially in doing so, when he accepts the memories, becomes Data, and when Data fades away, oh no, Data didn't die, he actually transferred his memories and Lore accepted them willingly. The memories that he decided to give were amazing. The last two particularly, one being the hologram of Tasha Yar, the deceased Tasha Yar, the one that showed up in the measure of a man. Tasha Yar being the first person Data ever was intimate with, and Data's first really close friend to die on him. And Spot being the last one just honestly broke my heart, because Spot has got to be deceased at this point in the timeline. Data claimed that Spot taught him love, and that just kind of almost made me cry. I love my cat Donna so much. She's sleeping right next to me. She shows up in some of the reviews sometimes, and I feel like Donna has just made me such a better person, because my relationship with her has grown all these years, and now I love her. She's like my favorite person. Don't tell my best friends that, but like Donna's my real best friend, and I could totally relate to that. I feel like my capacity to feel compassion and love people, and especially animals, has grown from my relationship with my cat, because she has grown from being the dopey, ugly duckling family cat. Now she is my cat. She's my best friend. I think she's the cutest, friendliest person ever. Data ultimately, in giving the memories over to Lore, wins this fight and comes back to consciousness. After that, it's amazing. We get this new version of Data that 75% of the time talks like Data, and then the other 25% of the time you get those good, confident inflections of Lore's voice and personality. The first thing that he does is he overcomes, talks to the entire crew of the Titan, and then also talks to Vadic and says that this is one pissed off security system. Totally amazing. I love the new Data. I really hope that everybody who watches this loves the new Data as much as I do, because it's truly Data that we always wanted, but even better. Lore has always had that part of humanity that Data has kind of been searching for, with all of the bad luggage that goes with it, because Lore's a confident person who's able to joke around, has humor, and hold a conversation. These things that even if Data were to become a human and obtain feelings, it would probably take him decades to truly grasp these things. Like, let's be honest, because we've gone from, you know, androids, Soong-type androids, to literal Fallout 4 synth. The synth body now, so he could feel things. He's like Picard. He's got nerves, feels truly human. And there's this point in the episode where Geordi talking to him, asking to him how he feels in his new android body, and I saw this coming from a mile away. Honestly, it is kind of cliche writing, but in a way it's also great writing, because it's exactly what he should have said. He just simply says, he doesn't say anything convoluted, he just simply says, I feel. Data feels now, and the fact that he's absorbed the best parts of Lore, from what I can assume, what Alton Soon was aiming for, what he was dreaming of doing in his final moments with this project. Has everything we wanted from Data. He's got a new Lamborghini synth body. On top of having those feelings, he's just got that personality from Lore, and we've kind of skipped that awkward phase, and now he could be funny, and he could be confident, and it's just such a great thing to see. 10 out of 10. Felt like a classic scene from just like a classic episode of TNG. Picard actually dies. I think it's called Tapestry. I could be completely wrong. I'm just gonna take a guess. Q kind of takes him back in time. Really feels like Q and him are the gates of heaven, and it's all white and you can't see anything. I was really reminded of that moment when Data was in his battle of the senses there. After that, they quickly retake the ship. There is a moment prior to this where Jack, after revealing to Beverly and Picard and everybody essentially about his hidden abilities. The fact that he can just use astral projection, telepathy, and put himself into other people's bodies on the same starship as him is absolutely crazy. And I'm thinking that Jack might not be a changeling, but I think that there is probably a part of the great link in Jack. Maybe? I don't know. I just hope he's not a full-fledged changeling that turns into goop. I think it would be a little bit silly if Picard's son was like a goop muck monster from Sky High. Jack goes up to the bridge and uses this thermal detonator, which later turns out to be this kind of portable shield. Uses it as a device to get all of the hostages into the ready room. Also, just this scene prior in the episode I need to mention where Vadic is just killing hostages, and it's supposed to be very tense, and she is using the lives of very unimportant no-name crew members that we don't care about. As a viewer, it's not really that tense ever, because, you know, it's like, is she going to kill grunt number 1 or is she going to kill grunt number 2? Oh no, the option was actually C. It was grunt number 3. She ends up killing Lieutenant Naveen, the bald lieutenant that is a part of the bridge crew. Whoop-de-frickin' do, I guess. It doesn't really matter. As long as the main cast members' lives are not in danger, I really doubt anybody cares that much. Jack seizes the opportunity and uses the shield thermal detonator to protect him and Seven, because Seven, for some silly reason, decides that she doesn't want to be in the room with everybody in the ready room, but she would rather put herself in a very vulnerable situation out there with Jack, and that honestly might make Jack's job harder. I don't know why she did that. Seven's decision-making is a little bit shaky, in all honesty, but Vadic is finally defeated when they open the airlock to the bridge. There's an airlock on the bridge. I don't know if that is a function on any other starship ever. There have been manuals written up and diagrams of all the previous starships. Have there ever been airlocks on the bridge? Because that is just really convenient that they can do that now. Vadic is blown out into space, and before she is blown out, she says effing solids. Riker and Troy come back from a shuttle and board the Titan, allowing all of the TNG members for the first time in 20 years to sit around the same table and talk about spaceship stuff. It is beautiful to see them all in their old age. They all look amazing. They're all really cool new versions of themselves. I think people, as much as they were probably frightened by the prospect of all these characters returning in a vastly different time period, in a vastly different age, I really think everybody's going to be pleased. When everybody sees them finally sitting around the table, they're going to think, hey, they didn't do half bad with the TNG crew. I think, personally, I kind of love them. I love Worf. I was content with how Riker and Troy were in season 1. I thought that they could be better, and they have become better. Beverly is amazing. I've literally loved her since episode 1 of this season. Picard, great. And then Data has also made a huge upgrade, in my opinion. Same with Worf. I love them both. Geordi has now come to his senses, and he just feels really classic. Honestly, nothing more that I could ask for in this moment. It was beautiful seeing them all around table, keep them together, and there's a lot more scenes of them doing things together, and honestly, we just need to see them all together on the bridge, just taking control. It needs to feel like an episode of the TNG again, with Picard and Riker and them all sitting in their respective appropriate seats. That would be so cool. I mean, Lieutenant Naveen, I believe, was ops, maybe, like where Worf should have been, so taking the opportunity to kill her will give opportunity for Lieutenant Worf to actually take the ops station, perhaps, or maybe the ops station is held by the majority male that they were thinking about killing but didn't. I don't remember. We will have to see. At the end of the episode, it is left off with another cliffhanger. We are actually legitimately cucked. Buddy gave us a cliffhanger, making us think that we were going to learn Jack's identity finally, but they managed to kind of hop around it and dodge, talk in riddles the entire episode, so we still don't know. And we're only going to find out with the help of Deanna Troi and her telepathic Betazoid powers, because now she and Jack are going on a mind meld journey. I know she's not a Vulcan, but this is pretty much like a Vulcan mind meld. They're going on a psychic telepathic journey, and she is going to help Jack discover what is behind that red door that keeps on popping up in his very erratic and violent visions. This episode was pretty freaking great, but it wasn't the cream of the crop at all. I'm definitely going to give it a 7.5, and it is extremely carried by that scene of all the TNG crew members together for the first time talking and being friendly and nice. It's so carried by that moment, but I'm not going to act like there weren't a lot of other entertaining scenes in this episode as well. I felt like Vadic's ultimate downfall in pacing was a little bit strange. I didn't expect her to die and get defeated like that. It was a little bit surprising. With all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're enjoying any of the other content that you see on the channel, I'd be very flattered if you were to subscribe. Please leave down in the comments what you guys think is going to happen in the final 2 episodes, what twists and turns they're going to take, what cameos you think are going to remain, and what great awesome things does Terry and the gang have for us in store for the final 20 minutes of Star Trek Picard Season 3. I want to know your guys' thoughts. Leave them down below. Comments are my favorite thing about the platform, so the more you leave, the more happy I am. Slap a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and with all that being said, I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Live long and prosper.